Okay, so in the last episode we had something of a torrid time with the Epiphone Goldtop, and if you haven't seen that episode, it is well worth a watch. There were some very frustrating things that had happened to that guitar over the course of its lifetime, which made my life a little bit of a misery, but we got there and we got it sorted out. I'm hoping this one is going to be a little bit more straightforward. There's a couple of little bits that need doing to it cosmetically. The chrome on the tailpiece and to a certain extent the bridge is kind of a little bit pitted and corroded, so I'm going to see if I can clean that up a little bit. This looks non-standard. For full disclosure, I actually used to own one of these guitars back in the 90s. It was a spare guitar, however it didn't really work very well in the context of a spare because my other guitar was a Strat, and swapping between the two wasn't very straightforward. So if you broke a string, it was a little bit of a faff. So I sold my Hohner and brought the candy apple red Strat, which you might be familiar with from other videos, to replace it. And truth be told, I'm slightly jealous of the guy who's got this one because they are great guitars and I wish I had one again. But my recollection is that this was a cream plastic plate, not a chrome one, and those screws don't look anything like what they should. So we're going to swap out that. There's a lot of cleaning up work to do on it. The frets are pretty good. There's tiny amount of wear, but nothing that I'm concerned about. Fretboard needs cleaning up. Probably just need to tart the frets up a little bit. But the one thing that has been said to me is that this switch doesn't seem to be working properly. It doesn't engage on the treble setting all the time. It's a little bit hit and miss, but I can see that when I'm pressing it down, it's kind of bouncing back up again. So perhaps it might be dirty. It might just be that the switch is goosed. I've got a spare one, so we can swap it out if we need to. So I'm going to get it plugged into an amp and we'll just see how bad this situation is. So rhythm position, fine. No difference when I put it into the middle position, which would indicate that's not working. And I can't seem to get anything out of there. Before I go too much further though, I'm just going to try and get a little bit of switch cleaner in there. Bingo, that seems to have done it. It seems to kick back out of that treble position a bit, but at least we're getting some output from it. My personal perspective here is that I would want to keep this as original as possible, and if that switch is working, we will leave it and just crack on with it. So with that sorted, again, this probably hasn't been played a huge amount, so we've got some crackly pots. But it is again just a case of giving them a waggle until they come back to life. And if you don't understand what I'm doing there, there's a wiper in the potentiometer that runs on a carbon track, and those carbon tracks sometimes just get a little bit of gunge on them, and you just need to run that wiper over them a few times just to clean it off and get it working again. And like I said in the last episode, if I wasn't able to get them to kind of start behaving just by giving them a twiddle, I would drop them out of the guitar, just blast some service oil in there, some switch cleaner, and get them working that way. But we seem to be working absolutely fine now, so I'm happy with that. So we can get that unplugged. Next up is we will just drop this jack plate out and see what the situation is there. And just like the last guitar, these look like screws that have absolutely no place whatsoever on a guitar. How long are these? So yeah, that's just a regular self-tapping screw. Not what you want, and it's about 3 times as long as they need to be as well. So we can do better than that. But it does mean I'm probably going to have to plug these holes up because they'll be way too big for the new screws. The wiring doesn't look anywhere near original either, but it's working. I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. And I've got here a cream jack plate. And actually that is sitting in such a way that none of those additional holes are visible. So I'm just going to drill some fresh holes in there, find some decent screws and screw it in place. Now I've got the first one in, I'm just going to set this little sliding square up. So I can get it in a nice equal position. Then hopefully once you've got 2 in, we can just bang the other 2 in without any issues. So that's that done, and before I kind of move on to the next bit, I'm just going to plug this back in and make sure that everything still works. And that's all good, still works, which is brilliant. We haven't disturbed anything in the output jack section. So now we can kind of crack on with what we were going to do in the first place, which was give this a nice clean up, get some fresh strings on it and get it set up properly. And the first part of that for me is I'm just going to give it a quick appraisal and see where we are in terms of setup at the beginning. I have played this a little bit and it does play okay, but I just want to check it out. Now neck relief, the 7th fret is, we're looking, it's about 12th thou. Customer says he prefers them about 10th thou, so we can deal with that. Action is just over 1.5 on the low E. It's a little bit higher, it's nearly 2 mil on the high E, so we might need to tweak the action a little bit, get that into a more playable position on the thin strings. But other than that, we look okay. Pickups look to be at a nice height. It seems to be a little bit of a loose screw there. Better. And the other thing I want to check just before I go any further, and I did this on the other one as well, I just didn't kind of capture it on film, is I want to make sure that the truss rod is working, or at least make sure that the truss rod turns. This is getting to be quite an old guitar now, and there is scope for things to have kind of seized up, but that turns absolutely lovely. So no issues there whatsoever. So I'll get the strings off and we can get to cleaning. The Hi-E took itself off. Clearly these have been on for a long time. So we shall just get rid. And thank the Lord, these strings have actually been put on by a sentient being and are coming straight off. Okay, strings are off, and the first thing I notice is that all of these tuners are a little bit loose and wobbly, so I'm going to turn it over and just see what's going on there. So there's no screws on the back. I think the best thing I can do is just see if I can find I'll whip this one off just to have a look at it, but what usually happens is that there's a pin that will locate this into the back of the headstock. In fact, there's two, look. And I think these just need a little bit of a tighten up. But I think before I do that, I'm going to drop them off one side at a time. And just give this a once over with some isopropyl alcohol, just to get any kind of grunge from under there, and then just give these a quick buff up. And just get any crap off them, of which there is plenty. And just nip them up, and that whole thing is a lot better now. So I'll just crack on. I'll do the rest of that off camera. You don't need to see me do that, and then I'll get back to you when it's done. Okay, so that's the tuners back on and all nice and tight again and cleaned up and looking lovely. I have no clue why they were so loose, but having said that, they are held in place by 10mm nuts, so perhaps they didn't have a spanner for it. Next up, I suppose, is we need to get a little bit of cleaning up work done on the fretboard and the frets. And again, there is a little bit of munch on the first 4 or 5 frets. There's a tiny little bit on further down as well, but there's nothing that I would be concerned about at this stage. If this was a guitar that was going to get played professionally every day, I would suggest that we did something about the frets, but as it stands, I don't think that's really an issue. And the fretboard is actually a lot cleaner than the other one, but not totally clean. So we'll just give that a wipe down with the IPA. And as we did on the last one as well, we'll just give them a going over with a fret eraser just to clean the oxidization off the fret down the bottom end of the neck. They're a little bit kind of graunchy. And I don't think it's the finish of the fret so much, I think it's just because it's got a little bit of oxidization on there that's formed a bit of a crust. So we'll just see if we can give them a bit of a zhuzh up. And they are coming up really nicely. So I'm happy with that. I won't bore you with the rest. I'll do it off camera and get back to you with the next little bit. And the next thing I want to do is just give everything a really good clean up. I'm just going to start getting some lemon oil onto the fretboard whilst I'm doing that, just so it can be soaking in while I'm doing something else. Because unlike the Epiphone, which was actually relatively clean, apart from the fretboard, which was honking, this one is quite dirty in places, and I think it would benefit from a bit of a clean up. So I'm just going to take off the pick guard This screw is a bit crappy. Obviously been in and out a few times and it's not particularly good condition, so I'll replace that. Probably do this one while I'm at it. I know I've banged on about keeping it original, but it also has to be functional. And that's minging under there. And I'm also going to just whip the pickups out of the body. And you can see how that's aged over the years, which actually I'm a fan of. Do like a bit of aging on a guitar. So I don't want to be too aggressive on that, but I do want to get the crap off it. I'll just give this a quick scrub with some alcohol on a toothbrush. That looks an awful lot better. I'll drop the screws back in. And just rinse and repeat on the bridge pickup. And you don't necessarily have to take them out to do this. Just make it a little bit easier. The screw's a bit tight and sticky. I'll put some wax on that one when it goes back in. It feels very tight. Last thing I want is it to break. Now, the body is, it's not just dust on there, it's kind of some residue of something or other, which is not great. There's a lot under here as well. So I'll get the bulk of that off, and with the worst of that cleaned off, I'm just going to get some colour restorer on just to kind of finally clean that up. Then we can start reassembling everything. And then the last couple of bits on the body before we start reassembly is just going to see if I can clean these, the bridge and the tailpiece up just a little bit. You might be able to see that's quite kind of bubbly, the chrome. I don't think I'm ever going to kind of make that not the case, but it might look a bit better for a clean. And again, the bridge is just ditched, so we'll nice polish up. Now, this oil isn't soaking into the fretboard very well at the moment, so I'm just going to leave that for 10 minutes and then get back to you when it has soaked in. Okay, so I've actually given this about 3 or 4 coats of oil onto the fretboard now, and it's looking a lot nicer and feels much better too. So realistically, all that remains to do now is chuck a set of strings on this and give it a quick setup, and we're ready to rock and roll. But as always, I'm not going to kind of bore you with endless images of me putting strings on. You've all seen me do that before, so I'll get back to you when this is ready for setup. Okay, we're back in business, we're all strung up, so I'm just going to very quickly set this one up, and kind of the same procedure as before. I'm just going to do a very quick check on the action because I did move the adjusters a little bit when I was cleaning it, so this is kind of just roughed in for now, but that's about 1.5mm both E strings, so if I can leave it at that I'd be a happy man, but we don't know as we can yet. But again, I'm just going to check my neck relief. Now this one wants to be set up about 10th thou, and at present we're a little bit fat at that, so I'm just going to add a little bit of truss rod. And I'd say that is pretty spot on. So with that done, we can just recheck that action. And I'm happy with that if it doesn't fret out. So it is fretting out a little bit. So I'm just going to lift that up a touch. I think that is pretty much spot on. So that only leaves us really the intonation to check. Now this sounded pretty good. I didn't actually check it with a tuner before I started work on it, but by ear it sounded pretty close. And what I will say is that after the Epiphone, these tuners are an absolute joy to work with. They are beautiful. That's good. It's good. Ever so slightly sharp, but I might leave that. So we're slightly sharp on the G string, so I am just going to just give that a tweak. And that is now spot on. It was literally half a turn on there and we were sorted out. So that is all good to go now. I just need to put the truss rod cover back on and it's job done. And there we have the second of our Les Paul Goldtop tribute axe, all nicely sorted out and back up and running. However, this isn't the end of our adventure, because what I would really like to do is to do a little bit of a shootout between these two, just to see what differences there are between the two, because I have got a feeling that the Hohner, when it was new, in comparison to the Epiphone, would have actually been quite a fair bit more expensive. Could be wrong on that. I will do my research, but I just want to do a little comparison test to see what that extra money would have actually bought you. However, I haven't got time to do it in this video, so I'm going to come back with a Saturday special in a few days' time where I can do a quick comparison of these two guitars and just to see if there are any differences in sound and performance. So like I say, I'll be back in a couple of days' time with that. Until then, don't forget to hit like if you've enjoyed this, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll look forward to seeing you then. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.